Hello there. Playing a character in Dungeons & Dragons is quite the commitment. You make your character and you go. Maybe you only go with that character for a year before the campaign ends. Maybe 5. I've been there. And in my time of being a Dungeons & Dragons player and not just a DM, I've noticed that there's quite a few things that you can do, specifically 5 things, look at the video title, that will definitely just help improve your experience and the Dungeon Master's experience and your friend's experience, or the other players if they're not your friends, and instead mortal enemies. So, without further ado, here are 5 things you should most definitely do as a player in Dungeons & Dragons. Number 1. Yeah. You should always try to take notes. The Dungeon Master will be very happy with you, just as a bonus, but taking notes can help you remember core important aspects of the campaign. Maybe the villain's name, an important shopkeeper's name, the king's name, etc. Or maybe small details about the locations and monsters that you come across. Keeping track of key aspects of the campaign will help not only you, but the Dungeon Master keep track of what they've said. Often Dungeon Masters might improv some world building just to make sure that there's so little detail in places that they didn't think about. So by keeping track, you are also just helping the Dungeon Master. This can also help you unravel plot points or foreshadowing that the Dungeon Master has laid out for you secretly. In my experience, by writing down small details, I've actually been able to piece together the plot, or rather the plan of the villain. And this can also just work in character. Maybe your wizard whips out the notebook and starts scribing down notes about the things that he's seen. There's a lot of potential here for just good things to happen. Positivity. Yeah. Tip number 2. If you are confused by something as a player, make sure you communicate that with your Dungeon Master. Maybe if you're not currently playing a session, just DM your DM and ask questions. Not being clear on a rule or maybe a part of the lore that you're just completely confused about, that can lead to a lot of future problems or mistakes or misguided decisions, both in and out of roleplay. So, as a player, make sure you clear any confusion that you have as soon as you can. You don't want to misconstrue a part of the lore and then make a decision that ends up being worse for everybody. You want to make sure that you have a clear understanding of just what's going on, the plot, the story, the world, etc. Before you start to play in someone's campaign or one-shot, ensure, and I mean ensure, you know what character you're playing and its mechanics. What I mean by this is just make sure you understand the abilities your class has. If you're playing a fighter, make sure you know what Second Wind does. Make sure you know what Action Surge does. Because if you're asking questions in the middle of combat or even roleplay, it can slow things down and, you only get so many hours to play Dungeons & Dragons, depending on where you are. For example, I only usually run a session that's 2 to 3 hours long, and if combat is slowed down by, say, just a bunch of questions, it could take an extra session to get through that combat. Tip number 4. If another player seems to be not super involved in what's going on, make sure, as a player, that you try to bring them in a little bit. Talk to their character, interact with them. It can really help make their day or even week, because often players who stay to the sidelines, they don't really know what to do. They don't have guidance on how to roleplay. So by interacting with them, you're basically just giving them a way to roleplay. It's much easier for them to directly interact with someone else instead of interacting with the NPC, maybe the rest of the party. Oh, the choice. And this can really change the party dynamic. Once you start to bring them in a little more, the experience will probably just be better for you and the other player. Number 5. Make sure you are vocal about what you like and you certainly do not like about the campaign. Every Dungeon Master, for the most part, wants to improve their craft, what they are doing. The glory of the sun has just appeared in my room. So make sure you give them the feedback that they want. If they're doing something really well, make sure you tell them that, because you don't want them to stop doing it. They don't know how good they're doing because they are the ones doing it. You are the one receiving their story. So by saying, hey, I don't like how these mechanics line up, how they work, can we do something about that? You're going to be able to craft, with the Dungeon Master, a much better experience. And by telling the Dungeon Master what you do like, they can continue to do that, and maybe even make similar mechanics or storylines to the thing that you like. So, feedback, very important. Do it more. That's it for this video. This may be a slightly shorter video, but I felt like these were important lessons to get out there. Now perhaps there are videos that already kind of cover topics like this, but if there aren't, now you know. Now this isn't really much of a tip as something as you should just heed this as you play Dungeons & Dragons for however long you decide to. I've noticed a lot of players tend to see something when something's bad, they really dig into it, they get angry about it. No need. Just relax. It's a game. There's no need to be angry about it. Thank you for watching. The sun... Look, I have 2 lights in this room. I got this one ring light, and then I got the sun. And if you notice that half this video is bright, and the other half is very dark, I am sorry, but I cannot control the sun just yet. Anyway, I hope you have a good night, evening, morning, afternoon, brunch, breakfast, what have you. Adios.